If you're building a building and you break some, or the guy decides to change his mind, he wants an extra thing, you don't want to go get a different aggregate looking block, and the guy goes like, well, it doesn't even look like the same building anymore, it looks different. So he had all these extra blocks that were in under his orchard, and he said, you can have them, you come and get them. And so we built our shop out of those blocks, and they're all different. Aggregate, who cares? It's a shop. It was painted, we're happy with it. But there are some blocks that you do care about, and those are the ones over top of the windows, because they're what you call lintel blocks, and they are a special block. You cannot continue to build that building without those lintel, because you put those lintel blocks up, and then you put iron bars in there, and you pour cement, and you make a bond beam, then you can build a weight above it, and so those are special, and that's the same thing with protein. If you want to have complete protein, you have to have what's called the essential, and there's 8 essential amino acids. And they found out that eggs has got almost all of those essential amino acids, so there you go. Wheat is low in 2 of them. So now what do you do? Well, this is what happened. Next slide, please. What we found out was that if you are low in one of the essential amino acids, and what you do is you eat something else that's high in that essential amino acids. And so here we have it. If you have grain and you eat a legume, which is high in the ones that wheat is low in, then you get what we call a complete protein. And if you get wheat and you combine it with a nut, or grain and you combine it with a nut, then you can make it a complete protein. And so we had in the 70s, and those of you in this room who were vegetarian or listening to vegetarians, you'd hear them walking around. They said, I had some leucosine, I had some lysine, I have to get some tryptophan. And their neighbors were saying, why don't you just eat a burger? Like, it's so complicated. Like, I can't handle this. I don't know why. Just give me something to eat, right? I don't have time to figure it all out. Okay, next slide. This is, next one. Here we go. In the 1980s, we changed, and you'll see the forward food groups in Canada have been changing drastically, and the reason why is because we stopped studying animals and we started studying humans. And this is what we discovered. 1985 nutrition textbook, the protein requirements of human beings are what? Different from those of rats. A rat's mother what was the percentage of her milk was protein? 49. Well, let's say it's 50. What was the human mother's? 5. What would be the difference? If you multiplied it times, what would it have to be? 10 times, right? 10 times difference? If you had a bank account and you told me your bank account was a tiny bit different than mine, and you were getting 10 times the return on your money and I was getting 2%, I would not consider you a friend for telling me it was different. How would you tell me, it's really different, Phil? Like you know what I mean? There's a vast difference between 50% and 5%, right? A huge difference. But anyway, this is what they wrote. They said, but the idea that plant proteins are inadequate sources of essential amino acids has done what? Carried over for years. Now it appears that adequate consumption of essential amino acids is possible without doing protein complementation. Because you're a human being, your protein requirements are so vastly different from that of a rat. Your metabolism is different, your lifespan is different, the way you live. Our children take 20 years to grow up. Now, I know there's parents in this class that say it takes 30. I know that. We won't point at anyone. But literally, we grow the slowest of any creature on the planet because we don't have instincts. We pass on to them. That's what it was all about. That's the whole beauty of it. We teach them. We train them. We educate them. They don't need a high protein. They don't need a high. You see what I'm saying? Our protein requirements are vastly different from those of rats. And so you'll see your food groups are changing and changing and changing because now we're starting to study human beings. And it's a huge difference. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so I want to show you what happens when we eat protein. Okay, so next, touch it again, please. Okay, so we have 3-egg ham and cheese omelet. Oh, sorry, just a minute. I got to draw this on the board. Just 1 second. Get my head up myself here. Lunch is not until we get this done, and I don't think we're going to be done for another hour and a half. Here we go. What's a minute? Oh, thank you very much. Okay, here we go. So if you went to the World Health Organization, you had extra crop on your land, and you said, I want to send it to a country where they're starving, sub-Saharan Africa. I want to send them the food. What percentage of it would have to be protein? What would they tell you? World Health Organization, 2.5% of the calories in that container would have to be protein. Canadian government says that we should be consuming 8% of our calories as protein, okay? Take a look at your list if you still got it there. How much protein is there in wheat? What does it say on your list? What's the protein content of wheat? How much? 13, okay? How much is there in pumpkin? You got it there? 9, good. Are they both above 8? How much is in cabbage? How much? 13%. If you ate just cabbage, would you have enough protein according to the Canadian government? Just cabbage, that's all. Would you have enough? According to the Canadian government, they said cabbage is 13. They said you only needed 8. If you ate just cabbage, you'd have the house to yourself, too. Listen, Dr. His right name, anyways, he's running a program similar to ours. He's a nutritionist. He said if you eat a variety of fruits, grains, and vegetables, it is impossible to not get enough protein. If you ate a variety of grains, fruits, and vegetables, it is impossible to not get enough protein. And I have people that are coming to our guest house continually looking for protein dishes. I need a dish of protein. What are you having for protein today? What are we having? Isn't that amazing? Like, I mean, it's in the food you eat. I mean, the cows don't say, give me a protein dish. You know, they eat what they eat, right? Okay, so, all right, so here, we're going to go to this now. If we were to have a lady then, according to the Canadian government, using their figures, what she would need would be 46 grams of protein a day, and man would need about 56 grams, okay? So this person has a 3-egg ham and cheese omelet. How many grams of protein did they get? 46 grams. How much does a lady need for the whole day? 46, one dish. So hash browns, toast jelly, coffee, cream, orange juice, 56 grams. Next slide, please. Okay, Big Mac for lunch, 40 grams for that, French fries and milkshake. Next slide, please. All right, fried chicken. How much does a man need for the whole day? 56. How much did he get? Fried chicken, he got 55 grams of protein. Peas, big salad, potatoes, milk, 82. Put the 3 slides together now. Next slide, please. There we go. So that person for breakfast, dinner, and supper had a total of 178 grams of protein. How much more than is recommended by the Canadian government? But 3 times as much as is recommended, right? Have you ever had a pot salesman come to your house? No? You have never had a pot salesman come to your house?
Which kind of pot?
Oh, sorry. Times have changed. I can't remember. Listen, I'm talking about pots and pans, right? You guys. We got a whole nother class for you coming up. Okay, here we go. All right, so listen. You get a pot salesman comes to your house, and what they do is they take your pot, you get one of your pots, and they put water in it, they put some kind of solution in there, and that pot turns into this gray, ugly, squirming thing, and then you know right away that's what's killing me. It's got to be my pots. I knew something was aging me rapidly. And then they take out their pristine, stainless steel pot, and they put it down, they put the same water, and they put the stuff in there, and it just glistens. You go, oh, okay, I'll pay $3,000. Okay, I want to, whatever. They call that the twinkle. They sell you on the twinkle. And I ask people, well, is this ridiculous? Does people actually have a 3-egg ham and cheese omelet for breakfast, a Big Mac for lunch, and a fried chicken for supper? Do people actually live like that? You can't possibly eat like that. I've had my guests, we do that. I had one lady, I got to tell you this story. You got to run it, be at a guest house. You get some absolutely fabulous stories. This lady told me that she went to bed, and when she got up in the morning, the dishes were all clean. There were 17 cups and dishes in the sink from her husband and son. These were the after-hour, the afterglow food, the food that they watched while they were watching the game or the ball game or whatever. It was like that. 17 cups and dishes and saucers. So the food went on beyond the fried chicken and whatever. There was the pepperoni sticks and the, whatever else they were consuming in the evening. But this is not uncommon. This is not what we have. I want you to get it right in your mind. You have to understand the perception. We have left the farm, and we are trying to figure out how to get calories from the farm to your table. That's really what's going on. And the producers are using every gimmick that they can to sell you with whatever they can to get those calories to you. That's really what it amounts to, all right? Okay, next slide, please. So, this isn't even Halloween. Next slide. How many of you have heard of osteoporosis? What is osteoporosis? What is it? Osteo means what? Bones, and porosis means bone loss. Where was it we first discovered that? What was the main thing, the main place where we discovered it? You know where it was? With the Eskimos. Why? Why would Eskimos be having bone loss up in the Arctic Circle? What do they largely have to eat? They're eating largely fish, right? And caribou, and I mean, they don't have much in the way of vegetables and grains and things like that. I mean, they have to eat stuff that's largely protein dishes is what they're eating. And so they have the higher the protein intake, the quicker the osteoporosis. So here we go. Next slide, please. Throughout the world, the incidence of osteoporosis correlates directly with protein intake in any population. The greater the intake of protein, the more common and more severe will be the osteoporosis. So what would you suggest that they do? I mean, what we would do, normally what we would do is we would fly them up what? Milk. Get them to drink some, get some calcium into them. I mean, they're short of calcium. Next slide, please. In fact, World Health statistics show that osteoporosis is most common in exactly those countries where dairy products are consumed in the largest quantities: the United States, Finland, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. The problem is that milk is a good source of calcium. It is also a good source of protein. And so it's not, when they did studies on women that had osteoporosis and they gave them 3 glasses of milk, they put up 2 studies. One group had no milk and the other group had 3 glasses of milk a day for a year. The ones that had the 3 glasses of milk a day for a year had advanced osteoporosis in comparison to the women who had no milk at all. So it actually wasn't the resolution for the problem, all right? So the real problem that we're dealing with is the overconsumption of animal protein. We're just consuming large amounts of it, okay? All right, next slide, please. Now this came out of a nutrition textbook. The picture didn't. The picture was one that we drew, but this paragraph came right out of a nutrition textbook. Protein also affects calcium status, as already mentioned, but not by affecting absorption. The greater the amount of protein in the diet, the greater the amount of calcium excreted in the urine. This is why recommended intakes of calcium in the United States and Canada, where protein intakes are often double, those recommended are greater from those people in countries whose protein intakes are lower. Our problem that we're doing in Canada is that we're increasingly telling people to eat more calcium to protect their bones instead of telling them to eat less protein. Are you with me? So in other words, what really would make more sense is to eat less protein. All right, so if that was it, if we were stuck with just a balance between calcium and protein, we could walk away from here and say, okay, well, all right, my bones aren't that bad. Well, then along came the China study. How many of you have heard of the China study? Anybody heard of that? Why is it such a big deal? Why is the China study? Give me an idea. Anybody got an idea? Why is the China study such a big deal? All right, good. That's great. Number of people. Yeah, 800 million people. That's a big study. Okay, what else? What else makes it so interesting? All right, we had a nutritionist who came to visit Silver Hills Guest House. Very interested in what we were doing. Asked the question. She started asking us questions. So I started asking her questions. She said, it's very hard to do a nutrition study in Canada. Why? Why would it be hard to do a nutrition study in Canada? How many of you had oranges? Anybody have oranges? Where'd they come from? California. Where else? Where else? I mean, we get them from Safeway, we get them from Super Value, but where are they? How many had pineapple? Oh, where'd it come from? Okay, well, some of it came from Costa Rica, some of them came from Hawaii, some came from, Caribbean, So our food source is not stable. I mean, it comes from all over the place, right? I mean, what about ethnicity? We got people that are European background. We got people that are from Central Asia or South Asia. We got people that are coming from Africa. We got people from all. Canada's a melting pot. We got people from all over. So how can you compare food that is coming from all different sources with people that are coming from all different ethnical background and say that this causes this? How can you do that? But in China, they have places in China where people have lived for 200 years. Not that one person, but that family lived in that area for 200 years and ate the same food from the same fields for years and years and years. They weren't able to move around until the 80s so the China study was done before that China opened up, or at least as much as it is opened up. And so consequently, they could do a study and they could actually do comparatives. They could compare this region with this region with this region, this diet with this diet with this same genetic background in the large portion of the population, and so they could actually do nutrition studies. Now here's what is very, very interesting. Remember, we are focused on protein, right? This started back when we first started nutrition, we got focused on protein. So much so that they had great concern about countries in the world where they didn't have enough protein. Central America don't have enough protein. And so they would go down there and they would study them, and you know what their concern was, is whether you could tell whether the mother was getting enough protein by whether the child was maturing properly. What would be the test that you'd use to whether a child was maturing properly without sitting there and giving them a written test? They're children. How did you tell? What would be the indicator if you were a mother that your child was maturing quickly? What would it be? Whether the child quits clinging to your skirt. Isn't that something? That was the test. The child that moved away from mother and began to explore its environment, its brain was developing more rapidly and it was more curious and would move away from mother. The child at 3 years of age is still hanging on to mother's skirt. Well, that child's not developing properly, right? And so they would say that would kind of be the test. So what we did is we decided in places like Africa that we would try and bump up their protein. And what did we send the Africans? You got any idea what we did? Peanuts. We sent them peanuts. And they didn't eat them. Didn't like them. They weren't part of their traditional food, so they didn't eat them. But they got hungry, and they pried open the door, and they ate them. And almost every one of them came down with cancer, liver cancer, the whole tribe, kids, mothers, everybody, because the peanuts were moldy. And moldy peanuts have in there an aflatoxin, and that aflatoxin is one of the most carcinogenic substances on the planet. In fact, if you want to develop cancer in lab animals, you feed them moldy peanuts, then you can produce it, right? All right, so Dr. Campbell gets a call from the Minister of Health in the Philippines. There's a higher level of cancer, liver cancer, in young people in the Philippines. Higher than normal. I mean, there's certain anomalies that children would get cancer, but this was higher than that. And so Dr. Campbell is flying over there, and in his mind he's going over and over, and he's going like, oh, higher level of cancer in the Philippines, and we took peanuts over to the Philippines. The Americans are the ones that brought peanuts to the Philippines. You see, if those of you who've eaten Filipino dishes, they've got peanut sauces and all that kind. That came because of our fear that they weren't getting enough protein in the Philippines. Around the outside of the islands where they have fish, yes, they got lots of protein. But what about all those people living in the back country? And so we took peanuts over there. Well, now they're showing up with liver cancer. We knew that moldy peanuts causes cancer. We knew that. So Dr. Campbell is flying to the Philippines, and he's already starting to figure out how he's going to train the farmers. You got to dry the peanuts and make sure that they don't get moldy and all this. Guess what? He got over there and he told the Minister of Health, I'm sorry about this peanut thing that you're having. And he says, it's not the peanut thing. It's the kids that aren't eating the peanuts that got the cancer. It's the rich kids. It's the kids eating the Western diet. I went, what? So he went back to the lab. And what he did is he put animals and he fed them levels of aflatoxin, right? He gave some of them a 5% protein diet, and he gave some of them a 20% protein diet. 5% protein diet and a 20% protein diet. On 5% protein diet, no cancer. On 20% protein diet, 100% of them got cancer. He says when you get that kind of a relationship, that's more than just an anomaly. That represents something really important. So he said, okay, well, let's try them with gluten or soy protein. On 20% soy protein or gluten protein, they didn't develop cancer, but on 20% animal protein, they did. Every one of them. So they tried something. They said, okay, let's put them on a 20% protein diet. When they got the cancer started, let's reduce the protein intake to 5%. Cancer stopped. Held it for a year. And all they did was add back, not aflatoxin, just added the protein back again to 20%, and the cancer took off again. So he says, like, what happens is the body, when we come in contact with chemicals and all kinds of carcinogens, it alters the cell makeup. But the very reason why bodybuilders use protein is why? To bulk up, right? I mean, that's why we use protein, is because we rip, tear, and then bulk up. So we keep on using it. As it makes that, but it also makes cancer cells bulk up too. Are you with me? There's the problem, is it's making those cells turn over just like it's making muscle cells turn over. And so it would be very prudent not to just be concerned about protein and calcium, but also take a look at what the China study, and if you haven't taken a look at it, take a look at just the first chapter. I tell all my guests, just read the first chapter. You don't have to read the whole book, just read the first chapter. And he tells you in there what they discovered in China was exactly that. The areas where they ate more animal products, they had higher cancer. The areas where they didn't have access to the animal products, they had less cancer. And so it just gives us, I mean, what we're looking at today, we have to be our eyes open, realize that, yes, we're a long ways from the farm, but we still have choices to make. Be careful. Make those choices as wise as possible. Okay, well, we're going to end this lecture, and we have, I think, somebody was going to come up. Yeah, here he is.
Thank you again, Phil. Great information, hey? All right. Thank you, Phil. And what's the title of today's presentation? The whole thing? Health and Haystacks. And so now we're going to go through those doors again, and we're going to share a haystack meal together. But I'm going to just ask a blessing on the food, and then I'll just let you guys usher yourselves out, and I think it's ready. So let's bow our heads. Gracious Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you for our presentations today and our speaker. We just pray that this information would not soon be forgotten, but that it would actually make an impact on our daily lives. Be with us now as we enjoy this fellowship meal. Bless the food to our body's use, and bless the hands that have prepared it. Be with us.